component to all of this is the data piece. And I feel like we've been talking about this for the last 10 years. The data is the most important part of all of these experiences, whether it's integrating your catalog into a general purpose LLM feed or providing a really great shopper agent experience online, as well as embedding the buy button in these new channels. So unifying your data, cleaning your data, having trusted data is so important to setting yourself up for success for the holiday period.
Welcome to the Agentic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Agentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Agentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Agentic. Today's guest is Caila Schwartz. She is Salesforce's head of Agentic Commerce Shopper Insights, a new title for her, and we're going to dig into that whole story. This is Caila's second appearance on Agentic. She's been on the Jason and Scott show many times. I asked Caila to come on the pod because Salesforce released two awesome reports. Number one, they have their State of Commerce report. This is one they put out about annually, sometimes every 18 months. And what I like about it is it kind of reminds me about the Deloitte report, where they look at consumer side and then also merchant side. And then there's a third. That's what the Deloitte report does. This is fresher than the Deloitte report we talked about. But then what this one does is it adds a third component, which is their observed data platform. So it's got three data sources: observed data from the platform, stated preference data from merchants, stated preference data from consumers. And they do a great job of tying this together. And I love Caila is really good at picking the insights out that have an agentic commerce flavor. It's right there in her title now. So I think you're going to enjoy that. Then the second report is their holiday 2026 predictions. So this is where they identified, I think it was seven, I can't remember the number now, but they had five predictions. I called them the Caila Five. And so they have five predictions for holiday 26, kind of based on, again, some survey data, and then also what they're seeing in the platform and some interesting trends. So I think you're going to enjoy those. The way I think about it is we get kind of two views here. We get a little bit of a rear view mirror. So we get to see what happened in the first half of 2026. And then we got the headlights, and we can look into the holiday in the back half of 2026. A lot to cover. We go very deep, and we're able to skip right into the insights with Caila because we've known her for so long. So hope you enjoyed the conversation. I learned a ton. Welcome to this episode of Agentic. Today, I am joined by Caila Schwartz. She is the newly minted, congratulations, head of Agentic Commerce Shopper Insights at Salesforce. Caila, welcome on board.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Tell me about this big title change. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah. It's great. We've got a lot of research coming out over the summer and this fall. So it's going to be great going into all of that new data with a refreshed title. So super excited.
And you got Agentic Commerce in there, so I'm kind of jealous. So this is your second time on the pod, so we'll do the fast intro. Tell folks about your role at Salesforce, and then we'll talk about where all the amazing data that you talk about comes from.
Yeah. So I've been with Salesforce now for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in September, which is wild. I came here through the Demandware acquisition back in 2016. And my role here is to use all of the amazing data that we have access to understand the state of the consumer and the state of the industry. So we'll get into where we gather this data for this report. But essentially, we use all of the amazing platform data to help us understand consumer behavioral trends, technology adoption trends, and then we conduct surveys throughout the year to help us understand what are the motivating factors driving those trends across the industry. And so my perspective is more of an industry-wide one, trying to track where the broader consumer is going and what it means for retailers and how they can respond to those shifts in consumer behavior and sentiment.
So we're going to actually talk about two things today. We're going to talk about, you guys did kind of a back-to-back data drop. You did a state of e-commerce report, which is kind of one of your is it quarterly now, or like, is it half year? Like, what's the sequence on that? Is it an annual one?
I think it's about 1 to 1.5 years or so.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you put out some a holiday. It's I wouldn't know if you call it a forecast, but it's more of a prediction type piece.
Yeah. So in the summer, we put out our predictions, which are more bigger themes that we anticipate will be prominent over the holidays. And then in September, October timeframe, we'll put out our forecasts, which are more of what we expect for things like growth, when shoppers will start buying, discounts, things like that.
Let's start with the state of e-commerce report. So let's jump into the methodology on this one.
Yeah. So we had a few different sources of data for this report. The bedrock, the really foundational data that supports our research is survey-based. We surveyed about 3,450 commerce professionals across 20 countries and 13 industries. It was a split looking at B2B commerce professionals as well as B2C. So understanding how those different business models are thinking differently. And then we also included some consumer survey data that we had to understand, again, the pulse of the customer or the consumer. So there's a little over 4,500 global consumers operating across 9 markets. And we polled each of those different segments across between April and May of this year. And then in addition to that, we supplemented our research with our platform data. So 1.5 billion global shoppers operating across our commerce product. And now this is what we do is it's a little bit nuanced. We take a slice of our product data that goes into a model that we've built, and we use aggregated anonymized data to help us understand what's happening across the industry. While it is platform data, we're never analyzing it from the perspective of customer or platform performance. We just want to understand mainly what's happening industry-wide. So together, all those 3 data sources tell a really well-rounded story of the state of commerce today.
Yeah, so it's really good. We've got stated preference from what I'll call merchant side professionals. And then you've got shopper stated preference and then shopper observed. So you've got kind of a really good mix of stated preference and observed. And then I like that you've got both sides of the coin, the people that are selling stuff and the people that are buying it, because they're almost always misaligned. And that's always where the fun part of the story comes out.
It is. And I feel like, we pulse check the shopper, right? All day, the customer all day. But the actual operators, we don't get to talk to that much. So I think this is a really great exercise to really understand what they're feeling, seeing, doing. And so I think it's a great exercise that we do this every year or two, just to get a good pulse check on the industry.
Now that you have agentic commerce in your title, it's going to have to be probably every 5 days.
Yeah, probably.
More frequent than 1.5 years because things are changing way faster than that now.
They really are.
Yeah. And then you said B2B and B2C. I just want to clarify for the audience. Sometimes when people say B2B, they're talking about like maybe a CPG that sells wholesale. Other times, and I think in the Salesforce vocabulary, B2B is like industrial good type, like heavy equipment type things, not something you'd find in a physical store typically.
Exactly. It could also include healthcare and life sciences, other industries as well. So exactly, it can mean a lot of different industries beyond just CPG.
Got it. So by my math, this is the third or fourth of these you guys have done. What were the big observations you had from this one?
Yeah, well, the third edition that we launched a couple of years ago, I believe it was 2024. We were really coming off of the post-pandemic recalibration. So it's all about how companies are expanding their touch points into accelerating their digital presence across new channels, how they can expand their agility and their reach. 2023, 2024 were very interesting times. This edition is really looking at how companies are leveraging both predictive and generative AI to drive sales, automation, and personalization, how they are realizing return on investment, how they're maximizing efficiency with these tools, and the challenges that they're having. I feel like we always talk about this, but data unification and all of that. And then, the omni-channel experience as consumers, as shoppers, as buyers as their expectations are rising about on their experience with the companies that they do business with, meeting those customer expectations, meeting them in the channels that they're in, especially these new channels like LLMs, and expanding into international markets. All of those are becoming table stakes for businesses today. And so it really measured how companies are responding to these pressures and opportunities in the world of agentic commerce.
I've now been branded an agentic commerce maximalist. I don't know if you are because you have it in your title there, but the one thing that jumped out at me on the consumer side was, and there was a question, I guess, from the survey that was about agentic discovery.
Yep.
I'll let you say the stats because you define them better than I do. But what did you see? What is the big trend from over that period of time that you've seen there?
We're seeing a really big shift in the way that shoppers, consumers are discovering product and the channels that they're turning to. And so we started asking in our survey about these new channels, particularly general purpose LLMs, so ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera, social media agents. So we know Meta AI has agents, TikTok, there's social media agents popping up all the time. And then branded agents. So these are brand owned agents like Rufus and Sparky, and as well as many other brands that have launched their own versions of their own agent on their website over the past year. And so we saw the way we approached this was from two different angles. The first was, are you using these tools at any point in your buying journey in the past 12 months? So whether it's discovery, research, consideration phase, how have you used these at least once? And about 50% of shoppers said yes, which is about a 67% increase over what we observed last year for that same question. But what was most interesting to me was we asked, where do you go first in your buying journey? So before you go anywhere else, what tool do you turn to first? And we saw a 200% increase in the rate of shoppers saying that they turn to an agentic search. So it's a combination of the general purpose LLMs, the social media LLMs, and the branded on-site agents. So about 15% of shoppers today said they're turning to LLMs first versus 5% last spring, which to me signals that where this technology is moving from like a niche corner of the market, the consumer market, into a really mainstream channel. And I expect that when we poll consumers again later this year, we'll see that number grow even greater as these tools become even more embedded, not just in their shopping journeys, but across other avenues of their life that we know consumers are using these tools for.
I like that you frame it as the pole position. Like, where do you start? Because I've seen some data that shows like I think it was Sensor Tower with their panel data. They had like these 12 different use cases. It was a lot, and like 2 or 3 of them are like, okay, I've got some stuff in my cart, and I'm just going to ask an AI if this is a good deal. That's obviously not a discovery thing. That's just kind of like a little bit of a price check kind of a use case. But the pole position is clearly in the discovery. If there was a pie chart over time, and agentic commerce now is kind of like 15% of that pie chart, and it was 5, who someone had to lose in the pie chart. Where do you think that share is coming from?
Yeah, we're seeing loss in more of those traditional types of discovery channels. So traditional search, we're seeing loss across what we call traditional brand-owned channels, so branded websites or even stores, and then just traditional online marketplaces. So consumers are leaning more into these newer offsite discovery tools, which is really amazing. And it's incredible to see. You said earlier, Scott, at the beginning, just how quickly the space is moving. To see that shift in just a year is really incredible.
I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I've been doing it for like over 20 years, and things just don't move this fast. Even like in the mobile era, it was like it was pronounced, but it wasn't like boom.
No,
you didn't just like see it overnight like this.
No, you didn't. I was actually just talking to someone about this. If especially, I think mobile as like a traffic driver grew very quickly, but for actually purchasing over mobile, that took 15, 20 years to really reach parity. And then social, very similar. Social, it's not until recently where we saw social really drive incrementally more traffic. And now we're starting to see orders too. And it's almost like the agentic shift has not just impacted that channel, but it's also impacted social and mobile too, because we're seeing growth across those channels just in the last few quarters. So, thinking about, the diversification of the funnel, it's the LLMs, but it's also in these other channels that are becoming, this off-site discovery and research, where consumers are leaning more into these off-property channels to do their shopping.
I noticed in that discovery pie chart we were talking about, you didn't mention traditional social. Or were they neutral, negative, positive in that calculus?
Traditional social, we asked about. Social influencers were mostly flat. Social search, social AI is up. And especially we know like Gen Z very much leans into platforms like TikTok as a search channel. And so we're seeing that growth. And so that is where we're seeing on the growth side for social.
Okay. So we're seeing, so on one side of the coin, where the consumers are saying they're doing this. On the other side, what are our pros saying about the same thing?
Yeah, we commerce professionals are seeing this in their data, which is really great to see some harmony between what we see consumers say they're doing and what we see them doing, as well as what commerce professionals say that they're feeling as well in their business. So there's a strong agreement that across the industry, across commerce organizations, that more of their customer bases are leaning into these new channels, especially LLMs, in their shopping journey. They're leaning into personalization. And so we're definitely seeing that shift and that acknowledgement as well from professionals that this is a priority that they need to move into, and that they need to meet these customers where they are, and that ultimately is the biggest opportunity right now.
I get into these debates about agentic commerce you haven't been drawn into them as far as I can tell. But now it's in your title. You have to defend agentic commerce with me.
I know.
Anyway, the argument goes, okay, Caila's data is 50%. People say they start.
Yeah.
And then I say, then my counter is, okay, if you don't believe the consumer stats, what I can tell you is every chief digital officer I talk to, this is driving real transactions. This is their number one focus. And they're freaked out. Google traffic's down. Traditional search is like plummeting because it's not a consumer behavior thing. It's Google. Google's like becoming an answer engine, and you're therefore by logic not going to get as much traffic. And then they have another kind of fancy rebuttal for that too. But well, then they'll say, it's up hundreds of %, but it's like, they'll use the refer traffic data usually as a defender that says it's like, it's only like 4% of all referrals. There's a measurability thing we don't have to get into, but I don't know if you think
that's a
about
big
that
question.
Too.
No.
I'm sure you see it in your data.
The measurability aspect of it is really hard because it is moving so quickly. That's one part of it. And the space is so new and adoption is so fast. But I think this is the part of this that people are not thinking outside the box, and they're stuck maybe in the traditional ways that we think about commerce, and especially e-commerce, which is shifting, right? And that's what this report is highlighting. That's what we're seeing that's what commerce professionals are telling us. That's what we're seeing consumers do, which is that the shopping journey is becoming a lot more diversified across these other channels, off-property channels. And there's a factor that we can't quantify in terms of referral traffic because it's not being referred back to the brands because they're staying in the channel and they're conversating with the agent. And there's a number of turns that are happening and recommendations that are being given that might not be clicked on, but it's influencing the consumer. And whether they do ultimately click on that link or that seed is planted and they eventually do go to that website or directly, it's hard to quantify that. But what I think that what we are all maybe missing is the factor that we're all missing is that so much of this discovery now is happening in these conversations, and it's not a direct click into an e-commerce website, and which is the way we've traditionally measured it. And so we're going to have to be thinking about this in a more nuanced way, and we're going to have to measure it in a different way than we have been in the past.
It's almost like part of the attention economy at this point. Who's shopping, and how do you get some of their attention towards what you're doing?
100%.
Was there any other data kind of further down the funnel that you can kind of use to illustrate how this is converting? Because we see other data sources say it, there was a period of time where it's like, it converts worse. And then there was a period of time where it was kind of like with social. And now most people report that it's converting higher than social. What kind of data have you seen on that side?
I would say it's definitely converting better than social. According to our data, it converts better than most forms of traffic. In the very early days, when it was, a small subset of super users driving traffic to these sites from these conversations, the conversion rate was very, very, very high. We've seen that sort of stabilize as we've seen more traffic come, but it still is a much more motivated shopper that comes to site from these referrals. So it does convert. It converts way better than social. It converts better than direct traffic, than traditional search traffic.
Can you put a number? Okay, give us a range at least. I like way better, but when you say way better, I'm like 800%.
Definitely not 800%. Over the holiday period, I believe we're reporting it converted about 8 times better. It's definitely come down from that. I would say about 2x, 3x better than overall conversion. From social, it's even higher than that. Social converts less than 1% on average on an aggregate level. And so what we've seen for agentic traffic, search traffic, is that it converts typically around 2.5%, 3.5%. But as you said, this is changing very rapidly. So it's hard to track it, consistently as it's changing all the time. But consistently it is the highest converting form of traffic that we have today.
Yeah. Is there any consumer data on why? Or like, do consumers kind of say, the reason I'm using this is it helps me find what I'm looking for? Like, are they explicitly stating that in your data?
Overall, what we found is that across all shopper segments, the level of personalization that they're getting in these conversations is the highest degree of personalization that they're going to have in a digital space. So shoppers are leaning into it for those personalized recommendations, and which has been very consistent. The second most reported reason is to find better pricing and promotions. And when we dig into the data by income level, we're seeing that like mid and low income consumers are leaning more into these tools for the pricing aspect of it. So finding better prices, promo codes, lower priced alternatives. And whereas higher income consumers are leaning more into it for that personalization, those creative ideas, that the ability to get more of that white glove digital touch point that they wouldn't have on any other type of channel.
How about anything on basket size?
That's a great question. We haven't looked at basket size in our data.
I'm including AOV, like, the order size maybe is a better way to say it than basket size. Yeah.
Yeah.
the dollars in the purchase. Yeah.
So we can't see that level of data in our research. So, however, what I will say is that on aggregate, AOVs are increasing, but basket sizes are remaining relatively flat, if not further, on an aggregate level, declining slightly.
Your difference is number of items in the basket. Is that kind of like how you're okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, gotcha.
Exactly.
All right, good to know that's how you parse that.
Yeah. So hopefully by Q4, by holiday, we'll be able to look at the actual basket size from those conversions. Right now, we can't see that though.
Yeah. I consume almost all the surveys that come out. And another area where there's like a lot of divergence is this concept of trust, which is, there's a set of people that do a lot of these, especially if they're in like the fraud world. They want an outcome that says people don't trust agents, right? But then if you dig into the questions, it's like, would you trust an agent to go buy a dress for you sight unseen? And it's like, you're just like, of course, no one's going to trust that. No one. I don't think that's like agentic commerce to me. Would you lean on an agentic commerce thing to help surface some, cute dresses that you maybe hadn't seen before? That's another form of trust. There's kind of like trusting the sales agent, and then there's like trusting the automation. Did you guys ask any questions about, and maybe trust isn't the right word, but did you ask anything in that vein?
We did. We asked, and we asked this last year too. We asked them to rank their trust in the recommendations that they get from shopper agents. And what we found consistently, even as usage has grown, consumer trust in agent recommendations has remained pretty constant. In May, it was about 74% of shoppers trust the recommendations that they get from agents. We didn't ask about autonomous shopping, mainly because there's not a ton of consumer interest in that yet, at least. And so I don't have any data on that. But at least in terms of the engagements that they're having, there are high trust signals. The other thing that we asked is particularly about brand-owned agents. So, when you Amazon Rufus, Walmart Sparky, or even, Williams-Sonoma has their agent Olive. When you engage with a brand-owned agent and you end up purchasing from that brand, how much more confident do you feel in those purchases? And we found that an overwhelming majority, over 80% of shoppers, feel more confident with their purchase when they interact with a brand-owned agent, which I think is really compelling and really consistent with what we've seen other third-party sources say about consumer trust and shopper confidence in this technology.
Yeah. Let's flip the coin again. So are the commerce professionals building these shopper agents as fast as they can? Like what when you ask people, do they feel like they're on par with consumers are? Or do they feel like they're behind, or do they feel like they're ahead?
We've seen sort of a little bit of a difference between a B2B organization and a B2C commerce organization. On the B2C side, they're really leaning into the consumer expectation. So building shopper agents, expanding into LLMs, all of the automation and personalization there. B2B organizations, I would say, are more leaning into the operational efficiency. So automating workflows and business processes, especially and offering self-service and personalization to customers. So I would say there is a distinct difference in these two segments. But yes, on the B2C side, they are absolutely seeing it and feeling it and building for it. You know, ultimately what we're seeing is that less than a third or about a third of B2C organizations already have agents into deployment, which is consistent, you know, with what we're seeing out in the broader industry. But over half of them say that they plan to deploy agents within the next 6 months. And so there is a real race here. And we predict for holiday by Cyber Week of this year, over about 1 in 3 e-commerce sites will have a branded agent on their site. So the opportunity for the professional is, how does your branded agent shine? How does it cut through the noise and provide a really great experience for your shopper?
Yeah, I've tried a lot of these. I'm not going to name any names, and some of them, because I spend a fair amount of time on Alexa, the artist previously known as Rufus, it kind of spoils you because it's like really good, right? Like it knows the context over what's happening on the right pane. And if I just randomly ask it a question, it knows, oh, he's probably asking about that because I'm, a lot of the new agents, they're kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, I need to know, can you give me a link to the product? I'm like, I'm on the product. Like there's a lot of them have this, they're kind of like, you can tell they were put in very fast because they lack context into what's actually going on in the shopper journey.
Yeah.
Or they'll like require me to be logged in, which is like super frustrating. I am the guest shopper. I can't handle a login for everybody.
Well, I think that speaks to the challenges, right? Our research found that the biggest barrier to this technology is data and data unification and unifying all of these tools. And what was interesting in the research, which is almost sort of the opposite of what we've heard a lot of people say over the last couple of years, is that commerce professionals, about 4 in 5 of them, say that their tech stack over the last 2 years has grown. It's gotten bigger. It hasn't gotten smaller. And so businesses are dealing with a lot of operational complexity, a lot of tools, which means it's harder than ever to unify that data. And if you can't unify that data, you can't provide that context to the agent, whether it's a shopper agent or a customer service agent. So that is the number one challenge that all businesses have right now into having a successful deployment of agents.
Yeah. You said the magic word. One of the things I love almost as much as agentic commerce is product data. Now you're talking about the where the data lives and unifying it. Did, from the pros and maybe even on the consumer side, was there anything that shows how are people are people investing in product data? Expanding. I'm sure you've seen it, but Google now they want even more attributes, right? Like they want these conversational attributes, and ChatGPT wants a bunch of other things. Are the pros thinking about that and doing something about it?
So we didn't ask specifically about product attributes. I will say though that product data, expanding product data, having more organized product data, building out your product feed directly into these channels is probably one of the number one conversations I'm having right now. We know that this is going to be the new way that these LLMs will access product data or product feeds, product information. And so, yes, that is definitely something that we're seeing a concern of and a pursuit of, especially for B2C organizations looking to, get their brand into these LLMs. I will say though, I think there's it's an even playing field right now. And there's a lot of opportunity for brands to compete in this space.
That's music to my ears. We can end the podcast. Yeah, that's good to hear. Anything else before on the shopper trends before we get into the holiday piece?
We've covered a lot. I would just say that it's a really exciting time, and the entire industry, the entire commerce professional industry sees the value of agents within the business. And what our research really underscored was that this is a space where there's nearly consistent agreement that this is the future, this is the opportunity. What we're seeing right now is a shift from experimentation with these tools into real deployment, real use cases, real optimization. And so as we move through this year into next year, the focus is really going to be about optimizing, delivering on ROI, and really measuring these outcomes so that we can build some real solid use cases and some real solid industry benchmarks on how these perform and how this technology is impacting the business. So there's just so much going on, but I think it's all really exciting. And what our research shows is that the industry feels the same way.
I can't wait for next year's. Hopefully it won't be a year and a half. I'll give you the stretch goal for every 6. Yeah, there you go. All right, you signed up for it. I'll tell Mark Benioff. I'm going to send Mark Benioff an email. Just kidding. I don't have his email. So I want to dig into the holiday part, because even though we're recording this in August, it's right around the corner. And this is where you and I have been through this rodeo a couple times. Everyone just is like chill in the summer, and then you hit Labor Day and it's bonkers. Everyone's like, oh my God, we're behind for holiday. So we're heading right into it here.
We are.
Let's start with the methodology on this one.
Very similar methodology. We consumer study as well as our real shopper behavioral data. We take a little bit of a different approach to this, whereas our predictions are really trying to be forward looking. So we do some forecasting, we do some modeling, we pull in third-party research as well, to really take a very, very comprehensive look at the industry. And we include a lot more of the macroeconomic picture into our holiday predictions research, because that has been very foundational to shopper behavior the last couple of years. And so similar approach, but a little bit of a different nuance to how we analyze the data.
I like the packaging on this. So and I'm going to give you a new brand thing to think about. So you had 5 predictions. I'm going to call them the Caila Five.
I like it.
So walk us through the Caila Five. What are Caila's 5 bigs?
Yeah, well, we've talked a lot about this already, but our first prediction, and by the way, I'll say, like, we didn't plan it this way. It just happened. But our first prediction is about the role of LLMs. So we're seeing this shift to consumers utilizing these tools. What we're seeing right now in the industry as well is a significant increase in traffic, e-commerce traffic, but it's not moving the needle on conversions. Why? We've never seen anything like this before. And so one of our hypotheses is that much of this traffic that we're seeing is actually non-human traffic. And so it's either crawlers indexing sites, it's, agents pulling data back into these conversations, and a whole host of other reasons why, agents would come on to a brand site. And so our prediction is that as the top of the funnel becomes increasingly detached from the brand site, as more consumers lean into LLMs, third-party LLMs to aid them or begin their buying journey, especially this holiday, we anticipate about 20% of e-commerce traffic will be from non-human sources. And so it really begs the question, for the brand, do you invest in setting up ACP, Agentic Commerce Protocol? Do you invest, in building out these direct product feed integrations into these tools so that, you have a better chance of getting recommended into these conversations? I think that absolutely is important right now. But I think that we'll still have a very significant crawler presence over this holiday season. So that's our first prediction. Second leans more into the role of branded agents. So we predict that 1 in 3 retailers will have, I already previewed this, 1 in 3 retailers will have a brand-owned agent on site, which is a significant increase from what we saw last year. We saw a large number of brands go live this spring, and we're continuing to see more as we go through the summer. And so again, we're transitioning into, okay, we're experimenting with these agents on site. Now, how do we optimize the experience so that the consumer stays engaged with the agent and continues to ask nuanced questions? They might even, transition into other types of tasks like customer service, context switching between different types of engagements for the customer. And so we're going to see a lot more of that this holiday. Our third prediction, we didn't talk about this, is about social. So we're seeing this disruption happening at the top of the funnel, but we're also seeing disruption happen at the bottom of the funnel with social commerce. We're seeing more and more Gen Z, especially, lean into in-app social commerce. So buying directly in the social commerce app, but we're also seeing high-income individuals lean into this. And I think it's because they're much more likely and able to transact at the moment of inspiration. What's wild and fascinating with social commerce is, a few years ago, the use case for social commerce was, low price point individual items being purchased. We're now seeing high ticket items be purchased in social. Social live commerce is really growing. And so we anticipate that social commerce will grow about 9 times faster than traditional e-commerce sales this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then all right, keep going, and then I'm going to come back to them. Keep going. I don't want to knock you off the Caila Five. You're on a roll.
All right. Our fourth prediction is all about the role of the store. Store is still incredibly important, but the way the role of the store is shifting a bit. We still see every generation prefers in-store shopping, especially over the holiday. We know Gen Z really loves a Black Friday, like doorbuster deal. They really want to have that experience because they never got to experience that before. So I anticipate we'll see a lot more of those types of promotions this year. But we kind of themed this holiday a unified or a fragmented but unified journey. We're seeing this fragmentation happening with social commerce and with LLMs with LLMs and agents. But we're also seeing a unification where the shopper, wherever they are interacting with your brand, whether it's on your traditional properties or not, they want to have a unified and connected experience. So that experience should feel consistent no matter where the shopper is interacting with your brand. And we know that about 43% of shoppers are already researching your products before they go in store. 43% say they intend to buy the item when they go in store. And about 80% say that they're using their phone while they're shopping through your store, and they're checking prices, they're researching, they're even chatting with an agent for product recommendations. And so the role of the store is a bit more nuanced than it's ever been. So this holiday, we're anticipating that about 37% of holiday dollars spent will be what we're calling hybrid sales. So sales that rely on both digital and physical to close the deal. And then our final prediction, a little bit more the impact of the macroeconomic market. We're seeing, again, the K-shaped economy is really pronounced right now. Very different consumer behaviors and sentiments from the high, middle, and low income consumer, pretty much across all markets. And so really driven by a lot of the macroeconomic headwinds we've had over the last several years. But one thing that unifies them is the need for free shipping. And so as the consumer wallet becomes increasingly more divided and challenging to win. Differentiating and building and reaching out to the customer with their preferred experiences is more important than ever. However, in today's economy, it's more challenging than ever because we have rising costs, rising shipping, all those sorts of things. And so we anticipate that brands will spend about 7% more in free shipping costs this holiday season in order to meet the demand, the consumer demand for free shipping. And so those are the 5 predictions. I'm happy to let's dive into the questions.
Yeah, the social one I think is interesting, and in the report you call it decoupled transactions. I like that because it's consciously what is it? Conscious decoupling. It's decoupled from the site, right? That I think that's what you're getting at with the decoupling. Yeah. The 9. Did you say 9x? 9x.
9x.
Yes.
Yep.
That's crazy. What are I get that Gen Z's millennials love their TikTok shop. What are the higher income people, are they also into the TikTok piece, or is that where Whatnot and some of the live platforms are really kind of rising?
Yes, TikTok is we're seeing it across all income levels. Definitely though, the live shopping platforms as well. But when we look across the different splits, so generational splits versus income splits, higher income is the most likely split of data, even more so than Gen Z, that says that they will buy through social apps over the holiday period. And when we just look at the past few months, the rate of shoppers, almost half of Gen Z has reported purchasing on a social channel in the last 3 months. So and we're seeing growth year over year, which is really compelling. So taken together with what we're seeing in traffic referred from social, there's so much momentum in social as a commerce engine, which is also fueling what I think will be what's to come, right? With transactions happening in conversations and agentic conversations. And so social is the
just
first
marketplaces.
use case.
It's marketplaces all over again.
Exactly. And it's the first use case. And so we'll see, next year, in 2 years, where the buy button also shows up. And I think we'll see as the shopper becomes more comfortable buying in channels like social, where they've already been for a very long time, we'll start to see that comfort grow to these new channels as well.
Yeah, I think that's why agentic commerce piece is growing so fast, is we've kind of gotten them used to, Amazon Marketplace, and everyone knows eBay, but now TikTok and all these other things have made it not uncommon to buy things off of a website. So
absolutely,
that tees up agentic commerce is not as big of a leap of faith as it would have been 10 years ago or something.
Exactly. Yep. It's all been incremental shifts over time. It seems like a big shift, but it's actually been incremental from mobile to social, Amazon, eBay, marketplaces. Yeah, it's all kind of led up to this moment.
Yeah. I know we've talked a lot about agentic search, but that's kind of the whole point of this podcast. So within that, one of those that, kind of number one in the Caila Five with a bullet, on the prediction side, we've talked mostly, the data we talked about in the state of e-commerce is really backwards looking a bit, right? Not too far back, but kind of like back a couple months. Looking forward, is there a specific prediction of what does that mean? Is there like X% of transactions are going to come from these, or anything like that we can kind of think about?
Yeah, transactions are a little tougher to quantify because there's so much that we can't attribute that it's hard to fully quantify the transaction. I think we'll continue to see a very high conversion rate, especially in comparison to the other channels. But, I think especially over the holidays, holiday period is very unique. And the reason why I like studying holiday is because it's a time when we see the most change in consumer shopping behavior. It's these little shifts that take place over holiday. We see more online shoppers than we see throughout the rest of the year. We see them adopting new behaviors. I don't know what it is about holiday, what it is about this. Everyone's stressed out. They're willing to use the new technology to make their life a little bit easier. but it's a moment of intense change for the consumer. So nothing would surprise me this holiday if we start to see some more, in-app conversation transactions happening, and those types of shifts take place. And if we do, and when we do, it'll be typically the behaviors we see adopted over this period stick with the consumer. And so that'll be a real inflection point on, what we'll see happen. But, we'll start to quantify this more in October or late September, early October, when we have our forecast. We'll put a number to agentic commerce and AI and the impact that it will have over the holiday period. So that's something to look forward to.
No, you'll have to come out. We'll do a shorter one, I promise. We'll do like a little 30-minute quick Caila hit, and you can kind of update us on the actual prediction with numbers.
Yeah.
It is interesting. So having done this for so many years, you kind of have this peak, but it establishes a new baseline. Like you don't stay there, but you come back, and the previous baseline in like Q1, Q2 is here. You now come in. Usually it's like almost in the middle of that previous baseline and the new one, and then it builds up to it quickly. And then it's really interesting to watch the behavior change because of the holiday. It's like people get a little bit of a habit, and it's pretty sticky. Just pretty neat.
It is. It's amazing. And it's only holiday where you kind of see that happen. November, December, something about that time.
By my math, there's about 15 weeks till Thanksgiving, which is kind of stressful. What are your top recos? What should be, what should, and our audience is largely on that B2C side. What should they be thinking about?
I think the number one thing, really the foundational component to all of this is the data piece. And I feel like we've been talking about this for the last 10 years. The data is the most important part of all of these experiences, whether it's integrating your catalog into a general purpose LLM feed or providing a really great shopper agent experience online, as well as embedding the buy button in these new channels. So unifying your data, cleaning your data, having trusted data, so important to setting yourself up for success for the holiday period. The next most important thing is really meeting your shopper where they are. It's a challenging macroeconomic environment. We are seeing some encouraging signs that the consumer is, buying and increasing their spend and things are moving in the right direction, which is great. But reaching the right customer is harder than ever. And so embedding yourself where your customer is shopping, whether that is social, the LLM, identifying where they are and meeting them there. And so I think, in integrating, turning on Agentic Commerce Protocol, ACP, OpenAI's ACP, really important for integrating your product feed directly into these conversations. Those are just two of what I think are going to be the most important things that brands can do to set themselves up for success this holiday season.
Now everyone's on pins and needles for your prediction, your piece, the actual forecast. Where, and this always moves around on me. So where on the giant surface area of Salesforce can we find your content?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We have a dedicated space on Salesforce.com for the Holiday Insights Hub, where you can find all of this data. So you can just search for it. I think now you can even chat with an agent. Just type it into the chat. They'll send you right to the page. And you can even ask for the State of Commerce report, and they'll send you right to that page. So super easy. And all of that data is there. And we also have our shopping index, which is our quarterly benchmark report. And so that is a really great pulse check on what we're seeing today as we go through 2026 with consumer spend, things like discounts, AOV, some of ththose more core e-commerce benchmarks live there.
Thanks, Caila. And then I always follow your LinkedIn. So you always have, you can kind of cut right to the chase and see what Caila's posting on her LinkedIn. And we'll put links to these two reports in the show notes so you don't have to hunt for this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Caila. We always appreciate it. And hopefully we can get you back for a quick hit in September and then maybe something during the holidays to let us know how things are going.
That would be great. Thanks for having me, Scott. And it's so nice to see you.